All right, this problem isn't terribly difficult, but I definitely want to make sure I go over it because I have a couple of things I want to share with you that help make your life a little bit easier. Basically, what's going to be going on in this particular problem is we're just going to be distributing. That's all we're doing. We're going to distribute 4x to the 1/3 to both terms. So if I were you, I would literally write this out before I do any sort of math. It's just literally write out the distribution to say 4x to the 1/3 times x to the 1/4 plus 4x to the 1/3 times x. Now, the first suggestion that I want to throw out there is to literally write in the first power on this x. Because you know that really the meat of this problem is going to be about using properties of exponents. And so we always have this assumed exponent of 1 if we don't write an exponent at all. So why assume? You know what assuming does. Let's literally write it. If we're going to be using properties of exponents, let's look at it. So now the other thing I want to talk about with this problem is just to remind you, if you're ever stuck on a rule of exponents, take something that you know the answer to and test it. So that, for instance, if you forget when you have x to the a times x to the b, if you forget and say, is it supposed to be to add those powers, or is it supposed to be that I multiply those powers together? Then take something you know the answer to. X to the first times x to the first. X times x. You know that x times x is x squared. That's not hard. So then you can ask yourself, did I do 1 plus 1 or did I do 1 times 1? Oh, clearly I did x plus 1, or 1 plus 1 rather. So there's my rule. That's my rule of exponents that I need to use, is I need to add my exponents together. So back to our problem then. We can cross a off right away because he doesn't have a 4 on both terms, and we know the 4 does need to be distributed. So a is straight up out. So what's going on here then is to figure out my exponents, I need to do 1/3 plus 1/4, and I need to do 1/3 plus 1. So if I think about this for just a half a second, 1/3 plus 1, is that bigger than 1 or smaller than 1? Well, clearly that's bigger than 1 because you're taking 1 and adding something to it. There's only one exponent up here that's bigger than 1, 4/3. So the answer of C is the only reasonable answer up here. Now I do want to remind you that your calculator will handle addition of fractions hopefully fairly easily for you. Oops, sorry, I'm still on some previous problems here. Let me go ahead and pop over here. That you should be able to type in 1/3 plus 1/4 and get an answer. If you're using a graphing calculator, you might have to hit the math button and then enter. That's going to turn it into a fraction, turn your answer into a fraction. And similarly, when we do our 1/3 plus 1, we should be able to get the 7/12 and the 4/3, which does get us this same answer. So we have the 7/12 and 4x to the 4/3. This gets us our answer as C. There we go. But again, the couple things I wanted to point out was to make sure to write out your steps, even on a simple problem. If you have an exponent of 1, literally write it out. Write out what you're doing behind the scenes. If you need some help with your rules, think of simple case scenarios, and look at those multiple choice options to say which of these makes sense.